Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another College and Career Pathways, where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we provide you with information on various colleges and universities, financial aid resources, technical schools, training programs, skill trade professions, and career readiness skills, all designed to help you make the best career decisions possible. I'm Toni Cureton, your host, and today we are with the Michigan Department of Treasury and my student aid, and they are going to be talking about FAFSA financial aid, various Michigan scholarships that you can use to assist you in your college expenses. Welcome back, Felicia. We're so glad to have you.
Realized I was muted there. Hi there. So thank you so much, Toni. It's a pleasure to be back. But yeah, so like as Toni mentioned, my name is Felicia Pelto. I'm from the state of Michigan Treasury. Our department is known as My Student Aid, where we try and help make school more accessible, affordable, and attainable. So I'm going to talk about Financial Aid 101. And then I may at some point end up shutting off my camera if I just notice some things getting a little laggy. So that'd be the reason why that goes off when it does, but no worries until then. Um, Agenda I'm going to talk about are the institutions to consider, the different types of financial aid that's out there, the FAFSA, and how it's the key to the entire process. Without it, you're essentially telling the government and all entities that receive it that you're good to go because we didn't receive one. So you want to send that as your, hey, I need money signal. There's the federal programs, the state programs that come from that, MISSG, which I'll talk about, which is the student portal from my department, and then some scholarships that we have, and Q&A if you have any questions. So I'll go ahead and get started. So there's three main types you should be considering, which is all of them really. There's the community college, the public college or university, as well as the private college or university. You'll notice the first line item is the cost of attendance, also interchangeably known as the student budget. And what that essentially is what they assume it'll cost for you to attend the institution during a 9-month time period, which is an annual year for an institution. This is including all costs associated with attending, so tuition and fees, room and board if there is one, books and supplies, transportation costs if that's something to be considered as well. So you'll notice the community college, of course, is the kind of less expensive option, but it just kind of goes up gradually because at a community college, it's meant to be affordable for the community, which is why it's more at that price. And they are typically looking at 2-year and under degree programs. But also keep in mind that sometimes there are 3+1 programs, also known as articulation agreements, where students can take 3 years of community college courses and then transfer to a participating public or private college or university. And so that allows you to spend, 3 years of that less expensive price and then 1 year of the more expensive price of the public or private. So that line 1 you're seeing there. Average again is in the middle, so that means there's colleges above, at, and below that number. But when you're looking at public and private, the reason there's a cost difference is because public, you're getting a discount for being a Michigan resident, versus private is usually one cost for everybody. And usually you're going to that school because of specialty of program, or because they offer shorter programs. So you're getting out faster with the same credentials. Typically, they're more expensive than the community college because of that room and board factor. But you're looking at bachelor's and graduate programs when you look at such a degree or such a school. So then there's the types of financial aid. This is from the federal government, and I'm going to go ahead and play this video here. So I will go ahead and shut my video off for this here.
If you need help paying for college or career school, the Office of Federal Student Aid might be your best option. We offer more than $150 billion to students each year in the form of grants, loans, and work-study funds. And federal student aid can be used to pay for school expenses, such as tuition, room and board, and books and supplies. After you've filled out the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA, you'll receive an award letter from each school you list on your FAFSA. This letter explains both the federal and non-federal financial aid options that a school is offering you. So let's talk about federal aid. If you qualify for and receive a federal grant, you won't have to repay the money. That will definitely help offset the cost of school, but you may still need additional help. If so, a federal student loan might be your answer. Remember, a student loan is just like any other loan. It's borrowed money that will have to be repaid with interest. If you plan to take out a loan, consider federal student loans first. Compared to private student loans, federal student loans often have lower fixed interest rates and offer many benefits that you won't find otherwise. For example, when it's time for you to repay your federal student loan, your loan servicer can work with you to find the best repayment plan for your individual needs. Plus, you may be able to adjust your loan payments based on your income. You also may be able to defer your federal loan payments, deduct student loan interest on your taxes, and even consolidate your eligible federal student loans into one loan with one monthly payment. Federal loans can even be forgiven based on certain types of employment. Getting a work-study job is another great option to help pay for school. Eligible undergraduate and graduate students will be able to earn at least minimum wage. If you have questions or need assistance, you can contact the financial aid office at your college or career school or visit studentaid.gov for more information.
So as discussed in the video, of course, there's the free money, which are the scholarships and grants. Scholarships, of course, I have merit-based up there, but I also say consider labels, right? You may be a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior in high school. Those labels are something that you can utilize. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by a little woodpecker I see getting ready to start pecking. And I apologize. Hoping it doesn't distract during a presentation because it's looking for some wood. So anywho, but think about those different labels and the things that you're interested in. So if you're thinking about, let's say, being a veterinarian or a nurse, junior, senior in high school, nursing degree or veterinary school, you can potentially find degrees or scholarships that can give you money for those degrees you're looking at. Then there's grants, of course, that are need-based. Work study was touched a little bit upon in the video, as well as student loans. I'll talk about both because they both have their own slide, but essentially we're going to talk about them both so that you know what opportunity they provide, as well as when it comes to student loans, that they are a part of the financial aid picture. Even though we don't like them to be, they are, and they can show up on your award offer letter, your financial aid offer letter. And we want to let you know that there's interest associated with them. And so you have the power to accept or decline those. And we want you to think about whether or not you'll graduate with a manageable, with an income that allows you to afford to pay off any loans you may have to borrow and have an affordable debt. So then there's four main sources of financial aid: the federal government, the state government, where I hail from, the institutions and colleges themselves, as well as private third party. So associations, foundations, clubs, employers, churches, unions. So I say anywhere you live, work, eat, or play, there's likely money exchanged. Look for an opportunity such as a scholarship. I've heard many talk about credit unions being a good place. And then I've had some churches reach out and inquire about having such a presentation because they wanted to help educate their congregation in addition to announcing a scholarship. So check, like I said, churches, unions, anywhere there's money exchange, there's likely scholarships. Then there's the FAFSA. So the FAFSA does require that you create an FSA ID. It's a federal student aid ID. And this federal student ID is a username and password combination you'll use to log in to the U.S. Department online education systems. Well, the U.S. Department of Education online systems, one of which is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. That FSA ID is going to be for anyone that contributes to the FAFSA, because that's what they're calling anyone that puts information on it are contributors. Those contributors include the student, parents, whether they be biological, adoptive, or step, And then once that student, let's say if that student decides to, graduate, get their bachelor's, move on, get a master's degree, they'll use that if they get married and have a spouse and they have to do a FAFSA together, that spouse will be on that FAFSA. And this FSA ID can carry on all the way until that student has a family of their own and that student is creating a FAFSA. So that's how this FSA ID sticks with you forever. So just a quick note that parents who marry filing jointly will only need one parent to create an FSA ID and complete and submit the FAFSA. Those that file separately will need both parents to create an FSA ID because when you think about it, if they created or did their taxes separately, thus they didn't give each other permission or access to each other's taxes. So they both have to create an FSA ID to give consent and submit their separate information. This is FAFSA.gov. And that's where you'd go to complete the FAFSA. And you just go to start here. Just to elaborate a little bit more on contributor information, married parents, you do need both parents' information. If your parents are legally separated or divorced, they want you to use the parent that provides the majority of financial support. That's how they've defined who to put on there. Parents, if they are remarried to a step parent, you're going to put that household's parental units on there. So your parent and that step parent's information. If your parent was never married and not living together, again, whoever provides the most financial support to the student. And if your parents were never married but living together, they'll be the filing separate situation where you'll need both their information, but they'll both have to create FSA IDs to import that information. And then these are the hours for the Federal Student Aid Call Center, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. To midnight, Saturday, 8 to 5, and Sunday, noon to 6 p.m. And that's 1-800-433-3243 or 1-800-4FED-AID. So some quick facts about the FAFSA. The FAFSA can be completed online at FAFSA.gov. So if anyone's trying to get you to pay for it, run away because free is that first F in FAFSA. So if anyone's getting you to pay, you should not be paying. It does have to be completed every single year you intend on going to school. And uniquely this year, we've learned for the 24-25 FAFSA, it's actually December 31st that it's going to become available for students. And if you want further updates on any of these changes going forward or per year, you can always sign up with us at My Student Aid. That information will be at the end of my presentation too, to sign up for email updates. We only have one FAFSA deadline for a scholarship, and that's the Michigan Tuition Grant on May 1st. And then as a result of doing the FAFSA, you have something known as the Student Aid Index, which is calculated from the FAFSA. The Student Aid Index, also known as the SAI, is sent directly to the colleges and universities included on your FAFSA, as well as the state agencies, such as mine. The SAI is the number used to determine how much federal student aid a student may be eligible for to receive. And then some colleges and universities will use it to determine their institutional aid. The variables that impact SAI are student and parent income, assets, as well as taxes paid. And I've got a short video on dependency status from the feds.
When you fill out the FAFSA, you'll be asked several questions that will determine whether you are an independent or dependent student. This is an important distinction because if you're a dependent student, then you'll need to include your parents' financial information on your FAFSA. This means that your parents' financial information will be considered along with your information to determine your eligibility for federal student aid. So how do you figure out if you're an independent or dependent student? Generally, if you are a graduate student, on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces, a veteran, are married, have children whom you support, or are 24 or older, then you are considered an independent student. If you don't meet any of these criteria, then you're likely considered a dependent student and will have to provide your parents' financial information when completing the FAFSA. If you have a different living situation, including divorced parents or living under the care of a grandparent or other relative, the online FAFSA will provide guidance to help you answer the parent questions. In other special circumstances, your status may not be as easy to determine, and you'll need guidance from the financial aid office at the college or career school you plan to attend. Some common questions that people often ask are, what if the FAFSA tells me I'm a dependent student, but my parents don't claim me on their taxes, or I've moved out of their house and am financially independent. While these situations do arise, they aren't part of the criteria for independent status on the FAFSA, so you would still be required to report your parents' financial information on the FAFSA. What if I'm considered a dependent student but have no contact with my parents or access to their information? There are other options available to you in these situations, so it is possible for a dependent student to submit the FAFSA without parental information. If you have indicated on your FAFSA that you cannot contact your parents or access their financial information, you'll need to speak to staff at the financial aid office at the college or career school you plan to attend. The financial aid staff will tell you what to do next. So what if my parents aren't going to help me pay for college and refuse to provide information from my FAFSA? If this is the case, the only federal aid you may be able to receive will be an unsubsidized loan, which is a federal student loan that begins accruing interest as soon as you receive your funds. To find out whether you can get the loan, fill out your FAFSA and then speak to the financial aid staff at the college or career school that you wish to attend. If you have any other questions regarding financial aid, your college or career school will be able to answer them for you, and, if appropriate, make a decision about your dependency status. Their decision is final and cannot be appealed to the U.S. Department of Education. No matter your dependency status, make sure to complete the FAFSA to find out what federal money you can get for college or career school. If you have questions or need more information, please visit studentaid.gov.
So hopefully that answered any questions you might have regarding dependency status. The only thing I would, I guess, elaborate or edit from that video is simply that the federal, is that when they said, my parent may not anticipate supporting me during while I go to college, and they're not willing to complete the FAFSA. Someone can hold those thoughts and not be completely related to each other. What I mean is, your parent can intend on not supporting you financially while you're in school and still be willing to do the FAFSA, because doing the FAFSA does not mean that your parent is financially responsible for you during college. That does not, one doesn't equal the other. So I just want you to know that, FYI. There is something known as professional judgment, though, and this is when you have a unique circumstance, and as a result of that circumstance, the financial aid office can consider doing a reevaluation. Circumstances we're aware of that they do consider are changes of income, household size, and certain dependency override situations as a result of family breakdown, as a result of abuse or neglect, people without homelessness or at risk of being homeless, or other unique circumstances with documentation. But they do not, however, consider financial reliance, tax filing status, or academic term residency, which is where the student stays during the academic year, to qualify for dependency override review. But once you get done with the FAFSA, these are all the federal programs you're considered for. Federal Pell Grant, Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, which they would say FSEOG on your award letter. Federal Work Study, which has been mentioned a couple times now. Teacher Education Assistance for Higher Education Grant, which is the TEACH grant. Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, the Federal Direct Subsidized and Unsubsidized Loan, and the Federal Direct Plus Loan. So the last two bullets are loans, and they do need to be repaid, and everything above those do not need to be repaid in our grants. The Pell Grant is the largest federal grant that exists, and students, of course, have to complete a FAFSA to be considered, again, every year. And for this current academic year, the 23-24, students currently in their fall semester, they were able to receive up to an annual maximum Pell of $7,395. This amount is based on full time, and it's for that full academic year. It does not have to be repaid. It's offered to undergraduate students only, and it's designed for low-income households, which assist students with high financial need. And I just want to bring our minds back to thinking about earlier when I had all those cost of attendances from the different types of colleges. $7,395 doesn't even scratch the surface of that average community college cost. So I say that to say that even the poorest of us can't depend on one resource. We need to stack and have multiple resources to help us, meet that cost of attendance. And so federal work study can help with that, as the first government video I shared, or Fed video I shared, where they talked about getting a part-time job to help pay for college expenses. This is a grant that the federal government offers, and it allows you to just be more marketable, because what it means is that grant's paying for part of your wages, and that employer doesn't pay the full wage themselves. But also there's rules associated with it, meaning that you have to be a student first before you're eligible for that. So you do have to remain in school and get good grades and maintain eligibility for your financial aid to remain employed. And you earn this money like you do a paycheck, so you manage it as the student on your own, and funds are directly paid to you. And so you use those funds to pay towards remaining tuition fees, campus charges, as we said, anything related to that cost of attendance. And the benefit of it is that not only do you receive this grant, but this grant counts in another place on the FAFSA known as need-based employment. And because of that, it doesn't count against you. Like I said earlier in student aid index, the impacts of that are student and parent income. Student income would have an impact, but work study counts as something that is immediately used when appropriately placed in the FAFSA, thus isn't counted against you because it's assumed that it's spent as it's received, whereas other money is assumed to be saved at least a little bit. I have another video here from the feds talking about responsible borrowing regarding student loans. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you.
College or career school is an important step in achieving your future goals, and there are many financial aid options to consider. Did you know that a federal student loan can be a great way to help pay for school? After all, a grant, work-study job, or a scholarship can be a huge help, but these forms of aid may not cover the full cost of attending school. So if you decide to take out a federal student loan, it's important to understand what you are getting and be a responsible borrower. Getting a loan is a big decision. You might be paying your loans back for 10 years or more, so take your time to decide. And remember to accept only the loans that you need, because you'll have to repay them once you're out of school. Here are a few things to keep in mind when deciding how much to borrow. Do some research. Make sure that your school is the right fit for you, both educationally and financially. Location, location, location. The amount of money you need to borrow can depend a lot on where your school is located. In-state schools and community colleges may cost less than out-of-state schools. And finally, getting an idea of your future income is also important when deciding how much to borrow. Starting salaries vary greatly depending on your career path, so it's worth thinking about how the amount of your loan will affect your future finances. After all, your student loan payments should be only a small percentage of your salary after you graduate. Once you've decided on your school and figured out how much money you should borrow, you'll need to sign a promissory note, which is an agreement to repay your loan. Make sure you keep a copy for your records. If you do take out loans, you'll need to keep in touch with your loan servicer when repayment begins. Your loan servicer will make this easy for you by offering web, email, and phone contact options. If you make this investment in your future, being an informed, responsible borrower can pay off in a big way. If you have questions or need more information, please visit studentaid.gov.
All right, and hopefully that helped with understanding a little bit more about the lot process with applying for federal student loans. However, I will say, let me elaborate a little further on the difference between them all. So as you can see in my first bullet, they're subsidized, and then following on to the next outer bullet, unsubsidized, and then plus, parent plus. So going back to the top, subsidized, if there is a better loan, there's, good and bad. Subsidized is the better one because it's considered, it has a need component associated to it. However, because of that need component, the government pays the interest while you're in college. So if you borrow $1,000 today, it saves $1,000 until 6 months after you graduate, or drop below half time. Whereas the unsubsidized, it's not considered, has no need associated with it, and thus $1,000 today could be any number based on the interest rate by the time you graduate, which is why often when people do get unsubsidized loans, they pay the interest while they're in school just to keep it at the number they borrowed it at. And then depending on the expense of how expensive the school is, may determine whether or not you get a Parent Plus loan associated or offered to you. And a Parent Plus loan is usually going to be offered as for all the remaining cost of attendance associated with attending that school. They're going to offer a Parent Plus loan to cover that remaining amount. And the parent's the loan holder, and it stays in the parent's name. It can't be transferred to the student. And this loan is credit-based. And typically we'll ask if the parent doesn't have good credit for a third-party cosigner. But in that scenario specifically, a parent can decline that third-party cosigner, and that would actually increase the amount of sub and unsub a student becomes eligible for as a result of that declining of a third party. So when it comes to borrowing, things that should be considered: explore the cost of college, because we know college is expensive. And so we want to make sure to do our homework and make sure to make a good financial choice. You want to make smart choices when it comes to borrowing and understand how much and what you're borrowing, and ask questions when you don't understand something. Advocate for you and your family. Learn your repayment options, because depending on what loans you've borrowed, there may be options for repayment after you leave school. And then make sure you know what options are available, because repayment options do change on occasion. So reach out to your loan servicer to learn more. However, you do have that ability to utilize your FSA ID and log into studentaid.gov and run Loan Simulator to learn about new loan repayment options. So then my Office of Student Scholarships, Grants, and Outreach, we were able to appropriate over $476 million to Michigan colleges, to Michigan students, about 78,000, I believe, Michigan students, through state financial aid programs. These were based on financial need, of course, most were, and most required the FAFSA to be completed. And you can find eligibility requirements, of course, on our website, michigan.gov/mystudentaid. And then these are the different state aid programs that we have. So there's Children of Veterans tuition grant, and that one is if you are a survivor of a veteran who is disabled or deceased, unfortunately, then you may be eligible for that scholarship. There is Fostering Futures Scholarship for students that may have been experienced time in foster care. There is the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, which I'll be talking about here shortly. The My Future Educator Fellowship and Stipend for anyone going into teaching. There's the Michigan Reconnect Scholarship for those 25 and older. Michigan Tuition Grant for students going to a private college or university. There's the Police Officers and Firefighters Survivor Tuition Grant, kind of as it sounds, if you're a survivor of a dearly departed police officer and firefighter lost in the line of duty. And then the Tuition Incentive Program, which I will be talking about here shortly. So eligibility requirements. You do have to complete a free application for federal student aid, be a Michigan resident, U.S. citizen, permanent resident, or approved refugee status, must be used at an approved Michigan college or university. So unfortunately, you can't take it out of state with you. You do have to be at least half-time, except with the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, it does require that you're full-time. Must not be in default on a federal student loan, have your high school diploma, certificate of completion, or its recognized equivalent, and meet satisfactory academic progress institutional standards. And that's at the institution you attend when you receive these opportunities. So again, FAFSA deadline, there's only one for the Michigan tuition grant, and that's May 1st, which is after you've ideally completed the FAFSA, but there's no FAFSA deadline for any other state programs. And then when it comes to why the FAFSA is important for the state, we look at FAFSA college order. So we always award to the first Michigan college listed on the FAFSA. So you're able to put up to 20 schools on the FAFSA. So it's very likely that you may not attend the first one listed. If that's the case, you want to go and create, or you can update us one of two ways. You can create a student portal at michigan.gov/MISSG, as well as you can contact us at our customer care center at 888-447-2687. And this will also be at the very end of my presentation as well, our contact info. But for the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, graduating seniors, this came out for graduating seniors who graduated last year this year, technically, 2023, but last academic year. And they could get up to $2,750 per year at a community college for up to 3 years. And this is anyone going forward. So you as well, if you're a senior this year, up to $5,500 per year at a public college or university for up to 5 years, up to $4,000 per year at private independent colleges or universities up to 5 years. And then if you decide to do a career training program, you can actually get up to $2,000 for 2 years. And they do require the FAFSA with the exception of the career training program. That one does not require the FAFSA. And then, of course, you can go to our website, michigan.gov/achievement to learn more about it. But then there's the tuition incentive program. So this is one of our largest state programs. Well, I want to say it is the largest, at least as of right now. We don't know with the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. But this tuition incentive program is a program for eligible students who have or have had Michigan Medicaid coverage for within a 3-year period between the age of 9 and high school graduation. And we get a list from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, MDHHS, every November. There's no special application needed, but those eligible have to complete high school by the time prior to age 20. And then if they decide to attend a state-approved early or middle college, they must graduate before age 21. And then they do have to, once they graduate from high school, utilize their benefits within 4 years. But then once they've utilized their benefits, then they simply increase the longevity to utilize their benefits to 10 years. So once they've utilized their benefits and had us pay for classes within 4 years of graduation, then they've got 10 years from that point on to utilize their benefits. And there's 2 phases. Phase 1 is what I call your associate certificate and associate degree phase, excuse me. And that's because at this phase, in order to utilize it, that's what you have to be working on. So if you go to your in-district community college, free tuition, and then up to $450 per mandatory, $450 in mandatory fees per semester. If students decide to, let's say, work on a vet tech certification or associate's degree at a public university, we will pay that lower level resident rate, which again is free tuition, and up to $450 in mandatory fees per semester. If a student decides to go to a private or independent college or university, working again on a certificate or associate's degree, they will get the average in-district community college rate, which is currently $126 per credit hour, and again, up to that $450 in mandatory fees. Students do have to be at least half-time in that certificate or associate degree program. The certificate program has to be at least 24 semester credit hours in one academic year. And one academic year is a period of at least 30 weeks of instructional time. And then once they get, let's say, 56 transferable credits, a certificate, associate's degree, and enough to transfer, they can move into phase 2, which is their bachelor's degree phase. And during their time at their public or private university in their bachelor's degree, they would get $500 per semester for those last 2 years. And they have to utilize those benefits within 30 months. And then MISSG is that student portal I was talking about earlier. If students go here and create this portal, they are able to complete different applications for our different scholarships. The ones that do need applications, which are only a few, it's the Fostering Futures, and then those 2 survivor scholarships. Then they can also receive important communication regarding their awards and eligibility from us, update the college on file, as I mentioned earlier, and see payment as well as eligibility status. And then if you go to our website, michigan.gov/MyStudentAid, My Student Aid just being all crammed together, you can see detailed program information, external resources about FAFSA, connect with us on social media, and see some scholarship search best practices and tools. there to assist you with keeping record and track of where you've gotten scholarships and your steps in that process, as well as getting to the portal. But you also have access to, and of course, when you go to our website, you go there under students and families, use that drop down to go to our My Scholarship Search tool. This tool is where we identify per the county you live in, every scholarship we're aware of that you'd be eligible for just based on the county you live in. And so when you generate a PDF, it will generate a PDF, but the links are still hot and clickable. If you have any questions, I will definitely be here to answer any, but this is that page I was telling you about where all of our contact information will be. We got our phone number, our email, as well as our website where I said michigan.gov/mystudentaid. But I want to thank you guys for allowing me to present to you today. I hope this was useful information, and I'm here again if you have any questions. So I've got that hanging out here.
Thank you so much, Felicia. I do have a question. Did
Absolutely.
you say that the FAFSA application would open December 31st of this year?
Yes. Yep.
Yay, we got a date.
I know, right? And what's funny is I'm like, man, I should have started betting people. I would have won. Because I kept joking around and saying, like, it's going to be like, Merry Christmas, here's your FAFSA. It was definitely going to be after Christmas. I knew that.
I'm excited about that. And then the next question, I have heard that there is going to be legislation taking place where students, in order to graduate, are going to be required to fill out and complete a FAFSA application. Is that correct?
I have heard that as well. It is something that's in, I guess, progress, but not decided.
Okay.
But it's a possibility. I mean,
do
yeah,
you think
that's
that
all we
will
know.
be effective for the 2024 school year, or maybe like 2025 or something?
I'd imagine. I doubt they would do it to the current students, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, but I highly doubt it. I guess, in my personal opinion, I think that they would do it to the 25, 26 versus the 24, 25 students.
Okay, good deal. And then, do you think this is legislation that will more likely than not go through, or just something that they are reviewing?
Kind of, I mean, it's definitely in legislation. And I have to assume that if it's gotten this far, they've been reviewing it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But yeah, I think some states have already done it too, which is why it's even gotten this far. But I haven't gone digging myself to know, like, what states. But that's just the rumor mill, right? Like, oh, well, some other states have done it. That's kind of where the idea came from, so.
Okay.
So I guess but as with anything, right? And I say this to you as a counselor, because I was digging in there thinking to myself, like, I know there are under-resourced schools. You know what I'm saying? Like, I came from, at the time, my school was so under-resourced, like, the only reason I made it to college was because I had decided early on that I was going to. So then when I did hear certain keywords, I at least knew to go to these certain events and try and do stuff. But if I didn't have that mindset in my college or in my high school, I wouldn't have made it to college because there was nothing that said, hey, do your FAFSA. You know what I mean? There was nothing that would have motivated or driven me towards it otherwise. And so just with that thought, I was like, what about students who don't end up doing the FAFSA because they're none the wiser, right?
Right.
There is that opportunity. There is like some kind of waiver that does exist in the process I saw. So that made me at least feel that, if it does go through, hopefully that waiver process isn't ridiculous,
Yeah.
because you never know what that's going to look like. I might be happy about something and it's a headache. They might make it intentionally difficult enough for you to go, oh, well, God, it's easier to do the FAFSA at this point.
Okay.
That, I guess, but I don't know, this is me just totally speculating.
Okay.
I
was
but
going to
yeah.
ask, that was going to be my next question. is there some sort of caveat where in the act, because as we discussed earlier, some students have parents that are not willing to provide information
Yeah.
so that they can fill out the FAFSA. And
Yeah. They're like,
how,
I'm not putting my stuff on there. Heck no.
how are they going to take that into account?
Yeah. Yeah, we did see that there was something written that says, a waiver process can exist or, will exist or whatever, but it didn't go into detail about what that looked like. So, but I mean, like I said, I felt at least some relief in the mindset of like, okay, well, if a counselor, is able to do this waiver process, or whatever that is, then awesome. You
Okay.
know, I just hope it's used, correctly, and that's me just like I said, years of experience and speculation. I've seen some counselors, give me all their students to talk to, and I've seen some counselors say these are my college ready students, right? So with that language, it tells me they selected out, right, these students and presented them. So that's where in my mind too, it's like I talked about coming from a underserved, area, and it's like, I can imagine that counselor just being like, all right, we just gonna process these waivers,
Sure. Sure.
because
Okay.
if she just doesn't have the capacity, you know what I mean? In my mind, even too, like, all right, we're
Mm-hmm.
just gonna process these waivers. It's easier to do this than to, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
on either scope, right? Either they're gonna make the waiver process easy and it's can be done, or they're like, a FAFSA is easier to do. Oh,
Also, I wanted to add with regards to the Michigan Skills Achievement Scholarship,
yeah,
does can that scholarship be used at any technical school or program, or is there a specific list of
yeah.
approved programs, and how does
One get
can
access to that
yeah,
list.
and how and
Yeah.
can any school be added or program be added?
Um, there is a list. I'm told, um, I'm told the process has something to do with like Pell eligibility. Like
Okay.
if a training program has Pell eligibility, then typically they're going to be eligible for our program,
Ah, okay.
which makes sense. I mean, because, right, typically something that's Pell eligible, if you just kind of think of track of approval, right? That
Sure,
means the Department of Education has given them approval to get federal funding. So states essentially saying, okay, we're just following federal suit, right?
sure.
Um,
Absolutely. Okay.
so yeah, but they say that the list can change. And with the skills scholarship specifically, it has a weird date. It's like I want to say, oh, so a student can't technically apply for it until after they graduate from high school. Like they need to have their diploma.
Okay.
Um, and I think they technically apply for it. Gosh, is it like I'm asking you, but I'm trying to like ask my brain. um, I want to say it was like something like August was like some kind of date that was thrown out there for a deadline. Um, and we were like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, kind of thing, because it's too close to when a student would be starting the program, kind of thing. Like, how would they know they even have funding? Was like
Right.
our rationale with it. And, they're just like, this is what's been, told to us, right? We have no power over. This is just what it is. But, I guess in my mind, I think of, okay, that must be the comfort of whoever's higher up, right?
Mm-hmm.
To
Mm-hmm.
think that funding should be available.
Okay. Okay.
If you know what I mean, if they think, okay, they graduate and then right before they
Mm-hmm.
jump in their program, they just apply to this thing.
Okay.
That must be what they think. You know what I mean? In terms of like they just apply and yep, they start school.
Okay. Okay. And you did say that for the Michigan Skills Scholarship, they do not have to fill out a FAFSA for that.
Nope. 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 So
Okay.
that's where they would specifically go to michigan.gov/the MISSG.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's where I want to say they should be able to apply. Like that's one of the purposes of it becoming more of an open thing. Because you remember back in the day, the only people that could get access or create a student portal were those that had a FAFSA completed and tip records, students with tip records. But now it's opening up because of like the skills scholarship and the My Future Educators things, right? Are people that are technically farther along in their programs and things. So if it's not on the MISSG, but I would still say get it, because then they can update us about schools and stuff. They
Yeah.
should michigan.gov/achievement, and then it should have like a link to the skills scholarship somewhere on there.
Okay, good deal. And
Yeah.
then last question for me. And the skills scholarship, is that for recently graduated, or can it be any student or any adult that
Mm.
is trying to obtain? Because like Michigan Reconnect is for students 21 and above that are
Well,
trying to
technically 25 right now. They're coming out with yeah, the other one you're talking about.
Okay.
It just hasn't like finished its stuff, but yeah, that one's in progress as well.
Okay. So then does Michigan Skills, is that just strictly high schoolers, or oh,
From my understanding, they're looking at graduates, from 2023 going forward.
okay.
That's my understanding with all of the Michigan Achievement branded everything is anyone that graduated 23 going forward.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't the unique thing, because I know with going to a university, you have the maximum of 15 months. I don't know how. I feel like I'm assuming, which isn't good, but like it's Michigan Achievement, right? Like that's what it is. So I feel like it's technically going to have similar rules. Because my thought was, if a student graduating from 2023, would they be able to use skills, right? And I'm like, well, technically we're about like, we're over 12 months. Are we at 15 months technically now that they'd be graduated? My brain.
Yeah.
I can't do the math right now, but that's what I know. There's an underlying rule of like, that's how long they have to get into it. So
Okay.
that's where at that point, though, if they miss the boat on Michigan Achievement, they will have these reconnect opportunities to then
Yes.
help them.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
they're going to get caught somewhere.
Okay. Good
That's
deal.
the hope.
That ends my questions. I know everyone's glad that I'm done and over with.
No, I'm
Do
glad you
we have
asked them.
do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? Please feel free to unmute and ask, or
Yeah,
you can type it in the chat and I'm more than happy to read it.
yeah, that works too.
All right, then. We will then bring this session to a close. Thank you so much, Felicia. Excellent presentation as always. And thank
You.
you guys for joining, and we will see you all next time.
Yeah.
Everybody have a great day.
Take care, everyone.
Bye
Bye bye.
now.